In the small, rain-washed town of Oak Ridge, there were two things you could count on: the cold winter wind and the legend of Leo Miller. By the time he was 17, Leo wasn't just a high school athlete. He was a local celebrity. He had a vertical leap that seemed to defy gravity and a three-point shot so smooth it looked like art. People didn't just go to the games to watch basketball. They went to watch him. But behind the cheering crowds and the bright stadium lights, a storm was brewing. A storm that started not on the court, but at a kitchen table. Leo's father, Marcus Miller, was the head coach. He was a man of few words and deep principles. While the town saw a star, Marcus saw something dangerous. He saw a boy who was starting to believe his own hype. He saw a son who was losing his soul to his ego. Oak Ridge lived for Friday nights. The gym was always packed, smelling of popcorn and nervous energy. For the people here, basketball was the only way out of a small town. Leo knew this. He felt the weight of the scouts in the stands. Every time he scored, he didn't look at his teammates. He looked at the cameras. He started showing up late to practice, laughing off his father's whistles. "The rules are for the players who need them, Dad," Leo whispered one afternoon after being 10 minutes late. "I'm the reason we're winning. You know it, and the town knows it." Marcus didn't argue. He just looked at his son, at the expensive sneakers, the arrogant smirk, and the way Leo avoided the eyes of the bench players. Marcus felt a cold knot in his stomach. He wasn't just failing as a coach. He felt like he was failing as a father. The tension peaked during the mid-season rivalry game against West High. The atmosphere was suffocating. If Oak Ridge won, they secured a spot in the championships. From the first whistle, Leo was unstoppable. He scored 12 points in the first quarter alone. But something was wrong. He was ball-hogging. He ignored open teammates. He took impossible shots just to hear the crowd gasp. At one point, a younger player named Toby, a freshman who worked 3 jobs just to stay on the team, was wide open under the basket. It was an easy layup. Instead of passing, Leo drove into 3 defenders, lost the ball, and then screamed at Toby for being in his way. The gym went silent for a split second. The arrogance was no longer a secret. Marcus Miller stood up from the bench. He didn't look at the scoreboard, which showed they were winning by 10. He looked at Toby's embarrassed face, then at his son's snarling lip. "Time out," Marcus barked. The team huddled. Leo was panting, looking for a water bottle, expecting praise. Instead, he found his father's eyes. They weren't angry. They were disappointed. And in Marcus's world, disappointment was much heavier than anger. The air in the huddle was thick. The other players were looking at their shoes, avoiding the heat radiating off Leo. Coach Miller didn't speak for the first 20 seconds. He just stood there, his clipboard trembling slightly in his hand. Not from fear, but from the weight of what he was about to do. "Leo," Marcus said. His voice was quiet, which made it 10 times more terrifying than a shout. Leo wiped sweat from his forehead with his jersey, a smug grin forming on his face. "I know, Dad. I'll keep the pressure on. I can get 50 tonight if I keep driving." "No," Marcus replied. "You're done. Take the warm-up jacket. Go to the end of the bench. You're not going back in." The grin vanished. The team captain, a quiet boy named Elias, gasped. Leo's eyes widened, darting to the scoreboard, then back to his father. "You're joking. We're only up by 10. If I sit, West High will catch up in 3 minutes. You need me." "I don't need a scorer," Marcus said, looking his son dead in the eye. "I need a teammate. And right now, you're just a guy in a jersey playing for himself. Sit down, Leo. That's an order." Leo didn't move at first. He looked at the crowd, his friends, the scouts, the girl he liked in the 3rd row. Then, with a sneer, he ripped his jersey out of his shorts and marched to the very last seat on the bench. As the buzzer sounded to end the timeout, the announcer's voice boomed over the speakers. and it looks like a substitution for Oak Ridge. Miller is heading to the bench. A murmur ran through the bleachers like a wildfire. The fans were confused. Then, as the game restarted and West High immediately scored a three-pointer, the confusion turned into anger. "Put him back in, Miller," a man shouted from the front row. "Don't ruin the season over a family fight," screamed another. Marcus Miller stood on the sideline, his arms crossed. He felt every pair of eyes burning into his back. He heard the insults. He even heard his own wife, Leo's mother, standing in the tunnel with a look of pure shock. But he didn't blink. He watched the game, and more importantly, he watched his son. On the bench, Leo was a volcano. Every time his replacement, Toby, made a mistake, Leo would scoff loudly or put his head in his hands. He wanted the team to fail. He needed them to fail so he could prove he was the hero. But as the third quarter went on, something strange happened. Without Leo's dominant presence, the other four players started to talk more. They started to pass. They were losing. The lead shrank to 4, then 2, but they were playing together. Marcus looked over at Leo. He wanted to see a son who was rooting for his friends. Instead, he saw a boy who was rooting for himself. It broke Marcus's heart. At one point, Toby dived for a ball and crashed into the bench, landing right at Leo's feet. Instead of helping him up, Leo just pulled his legs back to avoid being touched. Marcus saw it. The referee saw it. The scouts saw it. That was the moment the golden boy lost his shine. The talent was still there, but the character was hollow. And as the final buzzer of the third quarter sounded, Oak Ridge was trailing for the first time all season. The final buzzer didn't just end the game. It felt like it ended a legacy. Oak Ridge lost by 3 points. As the players walked off the court, the silence in the gym was deafening. No one cheered for the effort. No one patted Toby on the back for his hustle. All eyes were on Marcus and Leo. In the locker room, Marcus didn't give a speech. He didn't yell. He just said, "Bus leaves in 10 minutes. Be on it." Leo didn't shower with the team. He grabbed his bag and walked straight to his father's truck, sitting in the passenger seat with his hood pulled over his head. When Marcus finally climbed in, the air between them was freezing. Not a word was spoken during the 20-minute drive home. It was the kind of silence that screams. The next morning, the golden boy woke up to a different world. He opened his phone to find hundreds of notifications. But they weren't fan messages. They were comments blaming his father for throwing the game and calling Leo a diva who got what he deserved. At the local diner, where Marcus usually had coffee with the other town elders, seats were suddenly occupied. People who had known Marcus for 30 years looked away when he walked by. "You cost those kids a championship, Marcus," the owner of the hardware store said, leaning over the counter. "Was teaching your son a lesson worth the town's pride?" Marcus just paid for his coffee and left. He was losing his standing in the community he loved, all to save a son who currently hated him. 2 days later, a man in a dark suit was waiting for Leo after practice. It was Mr. Henderson, a scout from a top-tier university Leo had dreamed of attending. Leo's heart raced. This is it, he thought. He's going to tell me it doesn't matter what my dad did. He's going to offer me the scholarship. "Leo," Mr. Henderson said, shaking his hand firmly. "You have the best jump shot I've seen in 3 years of scouting." Leo's chest puffed out. "Thanks, sir. My dad, he was just being difficult." The scout didn't smile. "Here's the problem, Leo. We have 1,000 kids with a jump shot, but we only have 12 spots on a bus. And after watching you on the bench the other night, the way you treated your teammates, the way you didn't root for Toby, I realized something." The scout leaned in closer. "I can coach a kid to shoot. I can't coach a kid to be a human being. We're passing on you, Leo. Good luck elsewhere." The scout walked away. Leo stood alone in the parking lot, the cold wind biting at his face. For the first time in his life, his talent hadn't saved him. It had actually made things worse. He looked at his reflection in the glass door of the gym. He didn't see a star. He saw a lonely boy with a ball and no one to pass it to. That night, the Miller house was quiet, but the air had changed. Leo didn't go to his room. He sat on the porch steps, watching the rain hit the pavement. When Marcus walked out and sat beside him, Leo didn't pull away. "The scout talked to me," Leo said, his voice cracking. "He said I have a great shot, but I'm a terrible person to have on a bus." Marcus sighed, looking out into the dark. "Leo, I didn't bench you to lose the game. I benched you because I don't want you to win the game and lose your life. If you're the best player on the court but the smallest person in the room, you've already lost." Leo looked at his hands, the hands that had scored thousands of points but hadn't helped a teammate up in months. "I'm sorry, Dad. Not for the game. For everything." Marcus put a heavy hand on Leo's shoulder. It was the first time they had truly connected in years. "Tomorrow is a new practice, son. Decide who you want to be." The next day at practice, the atmosphere was tense. The team expected the old Leo to be even angrier. Instead, Leo arrived 20 minutes early. He wasn't practicing his dunks. He was setting up the water stations. When Toby walked in looking nervous, Leo didn't ignore him. "Hey, Toby," Leo called out. "Your footwork on that last layup was actually really good. You just need to release the ball a second earlier. Want to work on it?" The gym went silent. Coach Marcus stood in the corner, a small, hidden smile on his face. For the next 2 weeks, Leo became the loudest voice in the gym, not bragging about himself, but cheering for everyone else. He stopped being the king and started being the coach on the floor. The season came down to one final game. Oak Ridge was facing the same team that had beaten them when Leo was benched. The crowd was nervous. The town was still divided. With 10 seconds left on the clock, Oak Ridge was down by 1 point. The play was obvious. Give the ball to Leo. He was the best scorer. He had the hot hand. Leo took the ball at the top of the key. 3 defenders rushed toward him. The crowd stood up, screaming for him to shoot. In the past, Leo would have forced the shot. He would have tried to be the hero. But out of the corner of his eye, he saw Toby. Toby was wide open in the corner. Leo didn't hesitate. He didn't think about the scouts or the headlines. He made a crisp, perfect pass right into Toby's hands. The buzzer sounded as the ball left Toby's fingertips. Swish. Oak Ridge won. The gym exploded. The players didn't run to Toby first. They ran to Leo. They realized he had trusted them. He had sacrificed his own glory for their victory. As the team celebrated, the same man who had insulted Marcus at the diner walked up to the coach. He didn't say anything at first. He just shook Marcus's hand. "You were right, Miller," the man whispered. "You didn't just win a trophy. You built a man." Leo didn't look for the cameras that night. He walked over to his father, handed him the game ball, and said, "Thanks for the seat on the bench, coach. I needed it." The moral: your talent is a gift, but your character is a choice. Talent can take you to the top, but only character can keep you there. This story is a reminder to all of us. Whether you are a student, a parent, or a professional, don't let your ego build walls that your heart can't climb over. If you enjoyed this journey with Leo and Coach Miller, it means you value character just as much as we do here at English Tide. Did Coach Miller do the right thing? Would you have the courage to bench your own star player to teach them a lesson? Let us know in the comments. I read every single one. Before you go, hit that subscribe button and join our community. We tell stories that don't just teach you English, they help you navigate life. I'm your host from English Tide, and I'll see you in the next story.